On this edition of Southern News Week, we meet some keen young recyclers in Oamaru. The team from an adult theatre troupe pay a visit to Queenstown, and a Dunedin watering hole is without water. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. Year 9 pupils from East Otago High School have visited Oamaru as part of a term-long multi-subject project on sustainability. Their main port of call was the Waitaki Resource Recovery Park, looking for inspiration amongst the myriad of recycling materials.
The future is theirs. 22 Year 9 pupils from East Otago High School visited the Waitaki Resource Recovery Park this week to see where their recyclable rubbish goes. Student Abigail Patton says it's a growing problem.
With the waste that we've accumulated in the country, and we looked at the rubbish that had accumulated in our school over one day, and I was just astonished.
Their teacher Joshua Bird says the pupils' next task will be to develop a process which can help ease the growing problem of waste in New Zealand. Another student, Sarah Hay from a farm at Macrae's Flat, was also amazed with how much rubbish is generated at their school in a single day.
We got rubbish from like one day of rubbish out of the school, and then put it on a tarpaulin and sorted it up into its categories, and like it was so amazing how much rubbish there was in just one day, and most of it was like plastic, and that's like pretty bad for the environment.
Shaila Raharaha Beard from Karatane says she learned how some plastics are recycled and what can be made from waste.
Yeah, we were told about how they're making plastic bricks that can last about 100 years.
Okay.
And like plastic housings and like making plastic houses for a lot of people.
She admits to buying some unnecessary plastic stuff on trips to Dunedin and isn't entirely sure she'll stop doing it. But the pupils believe if every person does the right thing, it'll be better for the environment. In Oamaru, the South Today.
200 young Queenstown gymnasts could be without a floor to practice on in a matter of months. Queenstown Gymnastics Club has until July to find a new venue, or it will be forced to close its doors after more than 20 years of coaching and competitions.
As popular as ever, the Queenstown Gymnastics Club has about 200 members learning the fundamentals of the discipline, but the future of the club hangs in the balance as their current lease in Frankton runs out in July.
Well, once we have to move out of our current site, we really have nowhere to go, so it could mean having to close the club after nearly 20 years.
The saga over finding a site's been ongoing for years. For more than a decade, the club operated out of the old Wakatipu High School, but had to move out last month as the school's being demolished to make way for a new housing project. A landlord kindly offered the club a 3-month contract at this temporary site in Marks Park, but Hazlitt says the situation is now desperate.
Really appealing to anyone, if anyone has anything at all that could help, would take anything.
The space needs to be a minimum size of 200 square metres in order to have enough room for all apparatus. Hazlitt's been cold calling people, reaching out to developers and calling on council for help, but nothing has come to fruition yet. She says it would be absolutely devastating to have to close.
Oh, it's been a huge part of so many people's lives. You know, some of the gymnasts train up to 8 or 9 hours a week, so it's really their only sport that they do. So it's, you know, it's important.
The club's still pressing ahead with fundraising efforts by holding a family fun day in July. It hopes to raise over $30,000 for operational costs and to keep membership fees to a minimum. In Queenstown, the South Today.
After 3 months of bonding with their puppets, it's time for the cast of Avenue Q to take the stage. Showbiz Queenstown's season of the award-winning R16 musical entertained many at the Queenstown Memorial Centre, and we caught up with them ahead of the show.
Putting the finishing touches on the latest Showbiz Queenstown production, the cast and crew of Avenue Q gearing up for tonight's opening.
We all really wanted to get people who go, oh, musicals aren't my thing, to go, come on in, experience a musical. It's naughty, it's funny,
It's very funny.
hilarious. There's puppets popping out saying rude but funny things. What else can you want?
The PSA, when the Showbiz Committee was looking for this year's production, they wanted something different. Avenue Q was the first choice.
What's a little bit different, what's a little bit quirky, and Avenue Q was was top of the list, really.
And
Wasn't it?
yeah, but we still wanted a musical with high, like a pedigree, quality show.
Avenue Q ticked all the boxes. The R16 show is not only funny and entertaining, it also tackles serious themes like racism, sexuality and diversity. Tonight's opening, the culmination of 3 months' hard work.
Everyone's local, and we've got a married couple there, we've got brothers as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah,
a good mix of experienced and newcomers, which I think is really exciting.
And the special praise for the person in charge of costumes, Sophie Kennedy.
And we thought, oh, it's not actually going to be much of a job, much to do, because there are only 3 human characters. But the puppets have been a massive job, because they've needed a bit of TLC and
she's had a puppet hospital set up.
She has
every night fixing puppets, so she's done an amazing job.
Evening performances are set to be staged over the next 3 nights, with a matinee on Sunday and 3 more evening shows next week. In Queenstown, the South Today.
It's not exactly a pub without beer, but it amounts to the same thing. The Kerry's Bay Hotel was forced to close its doors recently for the 4th time in a year after a council water main failed again.
The sign in the window says it all. Kerry's Bay Hotel owner Joe Kidston having to shut up shop for the 4th time in the space of 12 months after an old Dunedin City Council water main supplying drinking water to the area failed yet again.
4:30 this morning my husband got up and found the water was off, and we wandered outside in our jackets and found another break in the mains out in front of the hotel.
She says it's about the 20th time in recent years the old asbestos pipe, which dates back to the 1960s, has blown. Each time repairs required the entire area's water supply to be cut off, affecting not just the hotel but also surrounding residents in Carries Bay and Deborah Bay. Kidston says the disruptions are getting worse, and despite a series of meetings with council staff, there appears to be no end in sight.
At the moment they're saying not for another 5 years, and even then we'll have to petition to get it into the plan, into the budget. So we'll see. Hopefully before then.
She's also just ordered 2 new 10,000 litre water tanks to provide a backup supply the next time the pipe blows, which she predicts won't be far away.
Last year, late November, we had a St Andrew's Day gig booked and a band coming, and it happened at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and took 9 hours to fix, so we had to put them off and turn everyone away and cancel the whole evening.
The disruptions have so far cost the hotel around 10 grand in revenue and staff costs as customers are turned away and staff sent home.
It's going to cost us anywhere up to $10,000 to install that, just as insurance, as security for the business.
The council say they're now reconsidering bringing forward the renewal of the troublesome water main to a significantly earlier date than previously planned. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on this edition of Southern News Week, pupils from Dunedin's Logan Park High School travelled south to win a new competition, and we talk with a Wanaka man who was happy that his rare sports car was returned, mostly unscathed. So see you after the break. Welcome back. Logan Park High School is leading the way in a new era of performing arts around the southern region. The school has won the inaugural Otago and Southland Regional Heat of the New Zealand Showquest competition, held in Invercargill earlier this week.
Taking the stage and rising to the challenge. Pupils and staff from Dunedin's Logan Park High School have just returned from a triumphant trip to Invercargill, where they won the inaugural Showquest, an event which has replaced the now defunct Stage Challenge.
Stage Challenge was much more dance focused. While dance is still really important with Showquest, it also incorporates film as a really major part. We had a lovely young filmmaker, Caitlin Bathgate, and she made a stunning film which really clarified some of the political issues we wanted to get across.
For many years, Logan Park High School has been known as a breeding ground for musicians, and Ashby says music is also a strong component of their winning piece.
It also incorporates an original composition by our band Paper Frogs, and they performed that live. So it takes music, drama, dance, media, art, and so just about the whole school is incorporated.
ShowQuest allows pupils from years 1 to 13 to showcase their skills in music, drama, dance and art by creating, producing and performing an original theatrical production. Pupil director Linnea Simons says their show is about the importance of family and how governments can manipulate people into submission by separating families.
So like what's been happening at the Mexico-US border, where families have been separated in order to control the people from Mexico who are entering the US.
More than 50 people were involved and rehearsed for about 2 months before the performance. Simons says all of the show's components were created by pupils at the school, including costumes, sets, choreography, dance, wearable arts and live music.
We put a lot of work into it, so we started planning, I guess, early February. On Tuesday when we performed, it was 2 months since our first rehearsal, so we've put it together in a relatively short amount of time, but we've had a really good team. We've had juniors doing choreography and we've been directing and doing choreography as well.
Simons says the whole team is stoked with their winning effort.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. We're all so proud of each other and it's kind of surreal to have won, but pretty happy.
Logan Park High School's live performance was filmed and will now be sent along with footage from the other regional winners to a panel of judges who will then pick an overall nationwide winner. In Dunedin, The South Today.
Wanaka man George Wallace is praising the efforts of police in recovering his $150,000 Austin Healey. The car and other possessions were stolen last week, and he says he's just grateful to have them back.
Glad to be back in possession of his $150,000 plus Austin Healey. Wanaka man George Wallace thankful it was recovered by police after it was stolen last week.
It's absolutely amazing. The police have been absolutely wonderful and cooperative, and I have got all my stuff back that had been stolen, and it's just amazing.
He had wondered why his car was sitting out in his yard at Mount Barker when he remembered putting it away in his shed the day before. That was clue 1. Then he found it was making a very loud noise as if the exhaust system had been torn off. That was clue 2. Clue 3 was a phone call from Geraldine Police to say they had his tandem axle car trailer there. He had no idea it was gone.
So then I looked around and found all sorts of other things missing, and then I got a call from the Tekapo police telling me that they'd found my generator. They've apprehended somebody that had a stolen Subaru from Hardware Flat, and that had the generator in and other things.
It all added up. He'd been the victim of a burglary and, in the case of the much sought after Austin Healey, an attempted burglary.
What they would have done with it, I don't know, because there's not a lot of these Austin Healeys around, and the moment one comes up for sale, anyone that knows anything about them would know where it's come from.
He's collected up all his stolen possessions and is now vowing to improve his security.
Well, I'm afraid I've been very casual about it. I've been here for 30 years, and this is the first time that it's happened.
As for the Austin Healey, it still has to be repaired, but he'd rather that than not having it at all. In Wanaka, The South Today.
4 people have been treated for smoke inhalation after a blaze in a central Dunedin building. At least 1 person was rescued from the roof of Dunedin House after thick black smoke from the fire spread to the floors above.
A swift evacuation in Dunedin Central City today after a fire in Dunedin House on the corner of Moray Place and Princes Street.
So a close call, alarms worked, evacuation worked, all good.
Senior Station Officer Rob Torrance confirming the fire started in a couch in the staff room of the New Zealand School of Tourism.
It's one of the newer couches that's been going very well. It's smoke logged all the floors above that floor, and we've had 3 persons with smoke inhalation. We've plucked 1 guy off the roof who was in an apartment on the top floor.
He says people at the school attempted to control the blaze with a fire extinguisher but were unsuccessful. He's pleased with the swift evacuation of the building, as well as the quick work of crews who managed to extinguish the blaze before it spread to consume the floor. And although there's nothing at this stage to suggest it was deliberately lit, the cause of the blaze remains unknown.
It's still a bit smoky. We're just a little bit, not suspicious, but there doesn't seem to be a lot in there that could cause the fire. But there is some fluorescent light and some other wiring that may have dropped down from the ceiling. so we're just unsure. So when it clears a bit, we'll hop in and have a look.
Torrance says a couch fire in the middle of the city is relatively rare.
Well, that changed for us here, you're quite right. It's usually in the student quarter, isn't it? This was in a reception area, or just outside the reception area, like a communal room. So we don't actually know, we know who was there at the time, the students that were at the college there, but we don't know the boys and yet, so we'll have to have a look at it.
4 people were treated at the scene, but none required transporting to hospital. An investigation into the cause is now underway. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The government is about to buy another sizable parcel of land as it moves to secure the intended site of the new Dunedin Hospital. Health Minister David Clark confirmed the Cumberland Street building housing Warehouse Stationery will soon be acquired, and the adjacent property occupied by a vehicle service centre has already been bought.
Putting his back into it, Health Minister David Clark lending a hand, knocking over one of the buildings in the way of Dunedin's new hospital precinct.
Very exciting to see great progress on the Dunedin site, something that I've personally campaigned on for years, and now it's really getting underway. Stuff's starting to happen.
The government is about to buy another sizable parcel of land as it moves to secure the intended site of the new Dunedin Hospital. Clark has confirmed the Cumberland Street building housing Lighting Direct and Warehouse Stationery is set to be acquired. He says the adjacent property occupied by the Midas Vehicle Service Centre has already been bought.
The next stage of planning is the concept design, be validating the master plan over the next period, and we have just recently learned the names of those who will be employed for this next process in both the design and concept phase. So there will be announcements on that forthcoming.
Negotiations are continuing to purchase the remaining sections on the block the government doesn't already own, and Clark says the project is currently running ahead of schedule.
Well, on site today, celebrating a bit of demolition. One of the first things to actually happen that's very concrete on the Dunedin Hospital site.
Following the Minister's cameo with a sledgehammer.
Very good feeling, very good feeling. Anyone else want to go? Recommend it.
Scope Group continued tearing down 2 buildings on the former Cadbury car park site, which are regarded as health and safety hazards. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on this edition of Southern Newsweek, a couple of recuperating kakapo are finding their friendship is aiding their recovery. And World Bee Day is celebrated in Southland, but something is souring the apiculture industry, so stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. The friendship of 2 kakapo recovering in Dunedin after complicated surgeries is offering hope, in a month when other chicks are being hit by a deadly fungal disease. One of the chicks, named Queenie, is recuperating at Dunedin's Wildlife Hospital after a recent leg surgery.
Queenie the kakapo recovering from a recent leg operation at Dunedin Wildlife Hospital. She's undergone a corrective surgery known as a wedge osteotomy, which involves re-breaking at the fracture site, removing some bone and realigning the leg. The young bird has been staying with a friend and taking painkillers, which has made her a lot happier.
Queenie is and has always been, since we've been caring for her the past few weeks, and even when we had her as a little chick, one of the most active little bouncy chicks, and which is not really conducive to good healing of a fracture, because with a human, this is a surgical procedure that is performed in humans, but you'll say, right, bed rest, or you have to rest and use crutches and just be careful, don't damage yourself, and she didn't listen to me when I told her that.
The already critically endangered kakapo population is taking a hit from a fungal respiratory disease on their island sanctuary, Whenua Hou. It's caused the deaths of 3 chicks and an adult in the past 3 weeks, and at least 5 more are being inspected.
It's starting to affect some of the adults as well, that's the more terrifying thing, is adult birds, you don't want to lose them.
She says it takes a village to raise a kakapo, and with the collective knowledge of both Auckland and Wellington zoos and Massey University, there's a lot of help for the world's only flightless nocturnal parrot.
Hopefully, there's always a good story to think back on and think of the amazing successes. It's still been an incredible season. There's still about 73, 74 chicks. And that's just actually amazing how many chicks we've had successfully come through. And and then we've got these great stories like Queenie and Espy. So focus on the good.
The kakapo breeding program predicts 30 to 50 new chicks, a huge boost for the population of just 144. In Dunedin, the South Today.
There was a buzz around the world recently as Apiarist celebrated World Bee Day. But not everything in the apiculture industry is so sweet, as beekeepers in Southland recently found out.
Perfect conditions on World Bee Day today for these beehives in Southland, but like many businesses and industries, winter can present plenty of problems for beekeepers.
The challenges will be weather, getting suitable periods of weather, like days as good or better than today, so you can pop around and do a check on your hives and make sure that they've got enough food on board.
Issues with disease and pests also make the job more difficult. The 2018 Bee Colony Loss Survey found suspected varroa mite issues led to about 20% of colonies being lost last year.
But it mysteriously arrived in New Zealand and nobody's ever put their hand up and said, yeah, it was me, I'm sorry, I made a bit of a mistake.
But World Bee Day is about celebrating bees and the crucial role they play in the ecosystem. About a third of all our food depends on pollination. Christensen says they're a fascinating species.
I think humans could learn a lot from them. Every bee in those colonies behind me here, every bee in there is interested in the well-being of the colony. Not one bee is interested in the welfare of its own self. That's why, when necessary, they know that if they're going to sting somebody, they know that it's going to kill them.
But it's all about survival as winter approaches, with the annual Appy NZ Bee Aware Month set to be held in September. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Redundancy is not usually regarded as a good thing, but it is when you are talking about a 5-kilometre electricity cable running up the side of Mount Roy above Wanaka. The proposed cable has been put out to pasture in favour of new equipment installed at the top of the mountain.
Getting a first-hand look at $300,000 worth of new equipment on Mount Roy above Wanaka. Representatives from the organisations that raised or provided money towards the project getting to see exactly how it's been spent.
So we've got the facility here for housing radio equipment for the Upper Clutha Basin. So it includes things like radios for VHF radio, for the Department of Conservation, for civil defence, search and rescue.
The new gear replaces an old cable which was used to power the radio communication repeater used by about 80 operators across the Upper Clutha.
The idea was promulgated in the late 70s, and so 1978 I think a group was formed to finally put a radio station in up here, or the repeater station, and that's where the power cable came up to here. And so on, and they put it in, and it's been going ever since then.
But it was frequently damaged by fire, earthquakes and lightning strikes. Brown says his organisation had been spending $30,000 to $40,000 a year on maintenance.
That's gone down to maybe $1,000 or less.
The most obvious improvement is a bank of solar panels.
That does enough now to power this and more, and even during the winter months, which is pretty good.
Brown says he's been the association's chairman for the past 6 years and has treated the modernisation of the repeater station as his baby. But he's now preparing to hand over to someone else. In Wanaka, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern News Week. For the latest news from the Southern region, subscribe to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Have a wonderful evening. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.